Today I'm talking with Gale Sciascia about tax planning strategies every pastor needs to know. But before we dive into that conversation, I want to introduce to you a missionary family doing incredible work in one of the most remote regions of South America. Let's hear from them.
Hi everyone, this is Micah.
I'm Carissa.
I'm Rhea.
And we are
The Adams Family.
Your missionaries to the Amazon jungles of Bolivia.
Bolivia is about the same size as the four corner states put together. We work in the northernmost part of Bolivia in an area called Pando, which is over half the size of Southern California and is pretty much purely jungle. And we reach out to the 6 indigenous tribal groups in that area.
To get out of town, we have to traverse the blockades, the muddy roads, and even travel in boats to get to these jungle villages.
You're about to hear singing in one of the tribal languages. We use doctors and dentists, clothes, and water filters in order to open doors within communities. Once there, we use a method called orality, which is taking the Bible and creating story in order to help the oral cultures learn more about God.
We've even been able to start a Bible school using this method where pastors can come and learn about the Bible and not have to learn to read or write or speak Spanish.
They can then take these stories back to their communities and practice them and return to us a couple months later to learn a new set of stories. And in this way, they can become pastors within their own community.
Thank you so much for being a part of sharing the gospel with those in the jungle that have been waiting over 2,000 years to hear it.
Bye.
If you want to learn more about Micah and Carissa and their ministry, connect with them, or find out how you can support their work in Bolivia, head to pastorsandmoney.com/spotlight. Now let's get into my conversation with Gale. Today on the podcast, I'm talking with Gale Sciascia. Gale is a recognized enrolled agent and co-founder of Sciascia Tax and Retirement. With over 15 years of experience, Gale helps business owners, professionals, and ministry leaders translate complicated tax code into clear, actionable strategies. Her mission is simple: educate, break financial restraints, and transform tax anxiety into wealth-building confidence. Gale, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
So you're an enrolled agent with over 15 years of experience, but for listeners who might not know, what exactly is an enrolled agent?
An enrolled agent is a federally licensed tax professional. We are authorized by the United States Department of Treasury to represent taxpayers before the IRS in all 50 states. We handle everything from tax preparation, tax planning, appeals, collections, audits, and so the IRS actually considers us masters of tax. We're very specialized.
What are some of the biggest tax challenges or missed opportunities that you've seen pastors facing?
So I gave it some thought. Some of the biggest challenges that I see is that pastors don't necessarily understand that they have sort of dual status. So they are considered an employee for income taxes, but self-employed for Social Security and Medicare. And so that tends to raise some confusion for them. And it also leads to some missed opportunities, like underutilizing their housing allowances or not setting up proper reimbursement plans or failing to plan for self-employment tax. The good news is that if you handle it strategically and professionally, it's very manageable and it can make a big difference.
That's good to know because you're an enrolled agent. You specialized in learning about this stuff. And pastors Most pastors were not tax professionals at some point in their life. There might be one here or there. I
No.
haven't met one yet. Either just a blind spot that we have, or if we know those issues are out there, it can be overwhelming. What am I supposed to do? How am I supposed to know what to do? So let's start with
Absolutely.
that big one of housing allowances. Can you break down what a housing allowance actually is and why it matters for pastors?
A housing allowance is special because where normal people would like to have every dollar they pay and write it off, they can. But for a pastor, the housing allowance is a portion of their income that the church designates for them as their housing costs, which means it's excluded from their federal income.
Okay. And
Um,
is this anybody that calls themselves a pastor? Is this credentialed ministers? Where does that line draw?
so it's a qualified expense and it's church sanctioned. You have a church home, a church body, and it's in your bylaws, it's in your minutes, it's a plan the church has set aside for you. So everything is going to come down to documentation. And so that housing allowance and even some of your expenses can be qualified housing expenses, but it needs to be set up properly.
So, how does a church board properly designate and approve that housing allowance? What do they need to do? When do they need to do it?
So it officially needs to be approved. Typically, that would be some type of meeting with the church, and then you put it in writing. That can be anything from the church minutes from that meeting. It can be a pastor's compensation agreement. It needs to be in effect. I like to have it in effect by the end of the year so that it takes place by the first paycheck of that new year. There should be specific dollar amounts or percentages designated in that agreement. There's a bit of onus on the pastor as well because they need to track their actual expenses. They need to track their income so that they can make sure everything is properly allotted by year end.
You mentioned in the employment agreement, if pastors don't have this in place, it would be good not just to have a board meeting and get this set up for next year, but also to build it into their process when they're hiring new staff, right?
Absolutely. We are so big on documentation at Josh Tax Retirement. It is one of the easiest ways to fail an audit or have expenses disallowed and just bring on other challenges is not having proper documentation. So definitely have the meeting, have the minutes for the meeting, have your compensation agreement, and have all of those things lined up so you can readily place your hands on it if you ever need it.
You don't have to reinvent the wheel every time you bring somebody on because you kind of figured out at least the process to get them in.
Right. You can template this process very easily. Hopefully, you have a good body and you're not moving around constantly, but it's a good practice. It provides the church some security, the pastor some security and peace of mind, and it makes it easier for your record keeper or your financial professional that's going to handle the tax portion and all of those things at the end of the year if they know what's happening. On the flip side, where the pastor, unless you're doing your own taxes, and then it'll save you headache there as well, but it makes it easier to hand off your documentation, for whoever's preparing for you.
Right. So if pastor is a W-2 employee, does that housing allowance show up differently on their W-2?
It all shows up as income, but what happens is in your tax software, your professional needs to know that criteria and that amount, like the fair market value, the fair rental value, and then that's where they would input that in that software, and then it would detract.
Some pastors live in a parsonage, some own their own home, some rent. How does the housing allowance work differently in each of those situations?
That's big. If the church is providing a parsonage, the fair rental value is excluded from the income.
Mhm.
Furnishings can still qualify as a designated allowance, but there can be some parameters around that. On the other hand, if a pastor is owning their home or renting it, they can exclude their actual housing expenses up to the fair rental value. It still requires documentation. It's just a little bit different the way that you will keep that documentation. It's a parsonage versus your own mortgage. Like it's written into the compensation agreement or, into those minutes versus supplying your own mortgage document that you receive at the end of the year.
So it sounds like if say I'm a minister, which I am, say I was doing my own taxes, which I don't, but if I were using TurboTax or one of these things, is it going to be hard to navigate that on your own? Is it going to make more sense to work with somebody who knows ministerial taxes, or is it fairly cut and dry once you know the specifics that apply to you?
Well, I think if you do it on your own, I think that just depends on an individual's capacity. If you are seeking a professional, though, I think it is best to have someone that knows clergy overall, just because there are some things that can be missed if you don't know. So it doesn't make that person a bad professional. It just means you need someone with some specialized experience just to make sure you don't miss anything.
What documentation do pastors need to keep in order to support that housing allowance?
Documentation is huge. You have really everything: receipts, invoices, canceled checks, proof of payment for housing expenses, mortgage or rent, any documentation for utilities, if you have to buy furniture or if you need repairs or however much your insurance is, whatever your maintenance fees are. So all of those things are important because they are good deductions that I've seen a lot of clergy members not take because they're just not aware. The key is being able to pull that documentation in a pretty quick manner should you need to produce it.
So let's talk about reimbursements. I was at a training last week and I heard this term, accountable reimbursement plan. Tell us what an accountable reimbursement plan is and why every church should have one.
Well, accountable plans are important. One of the big reasons, and this stretches across not just clergy, but any gig, side job, dog walker, childcare, things like that. Reimbursement is really important because you don't want it to be included in your income. For clergy, an accountable plan is a written reimbursement policy. It basically says what pastors are allowed to be reimbursed for. Kind of gives you a time frame, typically 30, 45 days, like any normal expense account would be turned in to supply the church with that information of what those expenses were so that you can be reimbursed. It can be anything from mileage to continuing education or supplies. We want you to have it so that you can be reimbursed, it not be included in your income, and then you're not paying taxes on a dollar amount that is not really income.
So this is expenses that you paid for out of pocket that were for some church purpose that were then reimbursed by the church. So the church, at the end of the day, paid for it, but you don't want it to show up on your W-2 as part of your paycheck.
Exactly.
So you're going to get taxed at a higher amount than what your actual income was.
That's absolutely correct. And the way that it should show up, because it does have to go on your check stub, but it will show up as a reimbursement and the zero tax beside it so that the church can take the expense on their end. They have proper documentation. It's noted on your side that it's a reimbursement.
What should a pastor do if they're not sure if their church has an accountable reimbursement plan in place?
The first thing to do would be to ask. Your board should know, your accounting team should know. If they don't, then it's a big safety net for all involved. It's a safety net for the church. It's a safety net for the pastor. And so they're not difficult to put in place. It's more, just a understanding of what you want to have and documenting it and holding to it. They're not largely complicated to put in place. I've seen some complicated ones, but it's really what you make it. You need to get with your board or your accounting team. Make sure you have a meeting. Make sure you have your minutes for that meeting. Put it in place.
So Pastors will often have a side income. Maybe they officiate weddings or speaking engagements. How should that be handled differently from their regular church salary?
So for side income, because that's really how you can look at it. So when you're working for the church, you're an employee.
Mhm.
And then when you have officiating or speaking engagements, you're considered self-employed. You have to take off your employee hat and put on your self-employed hat because that's two different arenas as far as taxes go. When you are having those side engagements like the officiating and things, your income for that goes on a Schedule C. It's a separate document inside of your tax return where you track that income and expenses attached to those side engagements.
Mhm.
You can have the same types of deductions like your mileage, robes, books, or travel costs, or things of that nature that you need for those side engagements. And you want to have a good record of those so you can make sure you take all deductions in that manner as well.
Mhm. Yeah, so you're really going to be treating that like its own business, right?
Right.
Keep records of what you spent, keep your receipts, and be prepared to report that as you're going through your tax process.
Yes. I think a lot of people have a little confusion around it because it's not tied to their W-2
Mhm.
and they don't understand that they still need to make quarterly estimated payments on that income if it's more full-time during the year or
Mhm.
it's more than a one-off. So that still needs to happen because you do still have to pay your tax on that. They sometimes don't even understand that they still have to claim that as income, but
Right.
you definitely do, which makes it even more important that you keep up with your expenses. And that way it can level that out a little bit for you.
Right. So I'm just thinking it's the middle of October when we're recording this. It's going to be later when this episode goes live. But I know from personal experience, because I've seen it with myself and other pastors, they get all this great information and it's like, I don't know where to start. So it just gets put on the back burner. My own housing allowance got put on the back burner because I didn't follow up on it 1 year. If you could give pastors just one proactive step that they could take this week to reduce tax anxiety or get themselves set up for success going into the following year, what would that be?
So I will borrow from Pastor Robbie. He is very good for saying, don't wait to claim your salvation, right? Like, don't wait until tomorrow. Do it today.
Mm.
That's my one big piece of advice. Start today.
Mhm.
Start your record keeping if you're not. Digital copies of receipts are
Mhm.
now accepted by the IRS, so you don't have to have a box full of paper.
Mhm.
Start trying to categorize, start trying to organize your information. It'll make it so much easier for you and your peace of mind. And then it also makes it a lot easier for the professional that you hand your information. A big encouragement to treat this proactively
Mhm.
instead of as a reaction at the end of the year.
Yeah.
Once you start keeping your records and going through your receipts, it becomes easier. It's just daunting because we don't want to do it, right? And I think that's the biggest thing. We just don't want to do it.
Yeah.
Um, but the big encouragement is start today. Don't wait till tomorrow.
If you start, the sooner you start, the less of a headache it is to actually get it going. I feel like it's a little bit of startup, figure out your process.
Hmm.
But I'm just thinking, like, for me personally, and my listeners should all know that I encourage you should be doing a budget. You should be tracking your expenses in your budget, anyways. So
Right.
for me, when I sit down once a week and track my transactions, that's when I'm also gonna, hey, that's a tax thing. I need to save that receipt. I just kind of sit and do it that time. And so then it doesn't become this big bear to pull it all together at the end of the year and try to figure out which way was up because it's just built into that weekly routine.
Absolutely. Habit,
Mhm.
which is good, like working out and muscle memory. The more you do it, the easier it becomes. So I'm a once a month person where
Mhm.
I know I'm going to have a Sunday afternoon of church. I'm going to go through the month. Everything's going to be reconciled. You tie it down, you're done. It's a habit that you really have to build.
I started using one of those mileage tracking apps. When I sit down to look over my budget, it basically puts all your trips in there and you just say, oh, that's personal, or oh, that was for this. You put it to the right category and add any other notes in it. That saved me so much headache, but also I found myself actually tracking more than I was logging before because I was constantly forgetting to record my mileage for things. And so to have that, it's already in there. I just need to give it a home. What does it belong to? Is it a personal thing? Is this a church thing or a business thing? And what's it for? Then I tracked a lot more than I ever had before because I had some help with that process.
It's surprising.
That little mileage book on the front seat of your car that you forget to start all the time. So that was something that was really helpful for me too.
And mileage is tricky. Mileage is one of the bigger red flags that the IRS looks at. A lot of people guess. The thing about that is people guess at round numbers.
You can tell when they're guessing.
Yes, they guess in round numbers. But, if you have to pay for the app, that's an expense. Take some grace with yourself and get the app. You're probably doing more than you think. But then at least you have very good documentation.
Right. It gives
You're
like an
not
IRS-friendly
guessing.
download at the end of the year.
Right. Absolutely.
It was so much easier this last year than it ever had been before.
Yes. It also makes when you have mileage, because again, it's a really big topic for the IRS, but when you have a mileage log, it makes it so much more cut and dry when you have to take the expense for your car instead of the mileage, which is not often talked about. So you don't always take your mileage. Sometimes you need your brakes changed or you need oil changes, and those things can sometimes be more than the gas mileage that you would get credit for. And when you take that and it's a higher amount, when you have the mileage logs, just show I went this far and it was needed, it just makes it so much easier.
Right. So we're to our lightning round. Just a couple quick hit questions here. What's the best financial habit that you've developed personally?
Oh, Lord. I think I started speaking to it. So I am reviewing finances monthly. I definitely don't believe in waiting till year end. I think you catch a lot more when you are going through your expenses on a monthly basis. It's easier to catch expenses that shouldn't be there. It's easier to catch fraud. It's easier to make disputes. It's an easier and more manageable way of handling your finances if you go through it monthly, make sure it's reconciled.
Yeah. I've had coaching clients. One person I can think of caught fraud twice that she wouldn't have caught because it was so small. But because she was tracking her things, she's like, wait, this wasn't me. This isn't in my Amazon account, but it says it's from Amazon. And she was able to get that stopped quicker. And then just maybe the last week or so, I had somebody who got charged double for something. If they had waited to the end of the year, well, for one, they probably wouldn't have caught it if they weren't tracking. But if they'd waited to the end of the year, it would have been too late to go back and get a refund.
Absolutely.
But now they can go, yeah, these charges are clearly the same thing. It's a system glitch and they can get it fixed. That helps you catch so much stuff.
It helps with budgeting. It helps you stay on target. And you have an eye on what your year should look like, where you stand.
Yeah. And if you're not tracking, how are you going to know if you need to course correct?
Nah.
You can say, I'm going to spend this on food all you want, but if you're not tracking, you're not going to know what you're actually spending on food or be able to make adjustments to it. So
absolutely.
Yeah. So our next question is, what do you use for budgeting? Are you an app person? Are you a spreadsheet person? A planner? What's your thing?
So we do use QuickBooks, and I like QuickBooks because I grew up with it in the accounting world. They very easily export to Excel. Those are my two go-tos. Me and my husband, we are Excel junkies, and him more so than me, though. I think I've calmed down a little bit with Excel, but he can build you a spreadsheet for anything. We go between those two so that we can make our different formulas, our own ROIs and see where we should be, and our own KPIs to see if we're hitting whatever targets. And so we go between those two.
Love it. What's your go-to Bible verse for encouragement?
I love Proverbs. I stay in Proverbs a lot. I think it goes like the plans of a diligent lead to abundance.
Mm-hmm.
I know I'm butchering that. Everyone who is hasty comes only to poverty.
Mm-hmm.
I like to be diligent. I like to be a good steward of what I have and plan for the things that I want to see come to fruition.
Yeah. I'm reading through Proverbs right now. I think I hit chapter 30 this morning, and there's a lot of financial stuff in Proverbs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Proverbs is a good book.
So then to wrap up, what's one piece of advice that you would give to our pastors that are listening?
I think ministry is a calling, and especially in today's time, I'm so glad that, we have some good people who are taking the call. I would like for them to treat the ministry like it is their calling, but to also remember that finances are a tool to help you sustain what you're called to do. Mm-hmm. We need to keep our mission moving with integrity and with balance and use the tools available to us. I don't really like that people view it so much as a dirty word, tax and money. You know what I mean? If you steward it properly and you.
This podcast is all about helping pastors stay healthy in ministry, and how we manage our finances is a part of that from a bunch of different angles. That perspective of money as a tool. Money itself doesn't have morals. It's a tool. Right. You can use it for good or you can use it for evil, but let's manage it well and not have it manage us.
Absolutely. I had a pastor once who did not manage well because the thought process was not that money is a tool. It was that money is bad. And like he would regularly have to visit food banks. And that's why I say I'd like for listeners to not view it as dirty because it is a tool, right? And it helps you sustain what you're called to do. I think it's just a small perception shift, if you will.
Yeah. We all need those sometimes.
I have to check myself.
Right.
All the time. But
yeah. So, Gale, thank you so much for your time with us today. Where can people connect with you and the work that you're doing?
So we are always available online. Our site is sciasciatr.com. That's SHASHATR.com. You can always give us a call, 615-723-1570. We are available and ready to help with questions and accountable plans and budgets and all the things that you may need assistance with.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for your time with us today. And I can't wait to see what you guys continue to do. You're doing really great work there. So
you as well. I enjoy your podcast and I'm really happy to have the opportunity to come on and talk with you.
We're going to park in this place where these two words that people don't think go together, we're going to put them right together.
I love it.